All right. If you are on Instagram right now, you can go to my Jordan FRC YouTube page right in the profile, and you can watch this live right now, or you can watch this later. So we're going to get into a full body mobility session. We're basically going to do the morning cars, and then we're just going to add maybe some adaptations to them, and then we're going to go over just some random isometric movement pathways, such as like hip flexor stuff and some of the stuff that you see. So you can start by kneeling, or you can stand up. We're going to get started with the neck. And I like to do this kneeling because I like to kind of stretch the feet as well, or the toes. Sometimes I'll go like this and get more of the knees. Sometimes I'll sit up nice and tall. Just depends. And so the more I kind of hold my body together, the more radiation I'm going to get. So the more muscles I'm going to recruit, the more I'm going to be able to control whatever I'm trying to control. So that's why it's good to hold on to something. Some people use the wall, pushing into the wall. Example, when you're doing a shoulder car, going into a lunge. And what that's doing is just making your body embrace different muscles. So the more muscles you recruit during mobility, the more control you're going to have over that range of motion. So we're trying to create circles with each joint using the law of radiation specificity and regulation as far as just doing it over and over each day. That's the only way you're going to have any biological change. So you can have these quick, mobility sessions, but it's not really going to do anything if you aren't doing it long term. So I'm going to start kneeling. I'm just going to clench my fists, sit up nice and tall, try not to sway forward or sway backward. I'm going to first start with the neck. What I'm going to do first is just kind of, pack some air low during the circles, but at the same time, I'm not at 100% intensity. I'm only at about 30 to 40% as far as contracting the muscles here, okay? If you want, you can create more radiation by holding on to something, or you can also hold on to dowels. It just depends on the exercise. So we're going to start with the neck, like I said. We're going to start by bringing the chin down. And what you're going to see first, so make sure you're just watching first. Chin goes down, rotate, and then we're going to bend into that side, laterally bend the neck, and then you're going to extend. Chin goes back, around, then you're going to look over the shoulder, laterally bend, and then drag that chin across the collarbone. So I'm going to do the next 3 circles, 1 more the other way, and then 2 the opposite way without saying anything. Noticing that I'm using my chin to kind of create the circle, and I'm using as much range as I can possibly find without pain. So if I feel pain, I'm going to try to go around that area. I'm not going to go into that area. I'm going to go the other way. Try not to lean back. Good. So there's your neck. I've seen people do the neck in a lot of different ways. For example, I think Frank Duffy Fitness, I've seen him do this where he turns the neck and then you look up and around like that. And then you do the same thing up and around the other way. Another way you can do the neck is getting in Sphinx pose. You can retract and protract the neck. You can also do flexion and extension here. And you can also do your neck carves here as well. You can perform your neck carves when you're walking, really anywhere you want. So now we're going to get into the T-spine and thoracic spine, upper spine. I think it's T1 to 7. And what we're going to do is cross the hands across the chest. If you have a yoga block, you can use one of those. You can use a medicine ball. You can use a physio ball. Basically anything to really squeeze that you can hold in your arms here. So what we do is we rotate, laterally bend, extend, rotate, laterally bend, and then flex forward. All the way to rotation, lateral bend, extension, rotation, lateral bend, flexion forward. I'm going to go the other way. Flexion, rotation, lateral bend, extension, rotation, lateral bend, rounding it out. Okay? I'm going to do that without the block. I'm going to just sit down on my heels. I've also done it like this, where I cross my hands across my shoulders. If you want, you can just practice the lateral bends. And this would just be an isometric contraction. And then you can also do the flexion forward and extension. Just try to do the upper back. Then you'll see people do a segmental cat and cow. Hands are underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, feet in line with the knees and the hands. Then co-contract the biceps and the triceps as you push into the ground and protract. Flexion of the neck. Now our hips here are tucked. So what we're doing here is a posterior pelvic tilt when we're in this cat pose. And then we go into an anterior pelvic tilt for that cow when we retract. So we're going to push into the ground, protract, pelvic tuck, posterior pelvic tilt here. And then we're going to keep pushing into the ground. And then we're going to start pulling into the ground. So we're going to actually try to pinch the ground. So we're trying to pull the hands toward the knees, knees toward the hands. And then as we're pulling, we're going to start that slow segmental of the vertebrae all the way from the low back, mid back, retract the shoulders, head, neck, and chin. Okay, so if you try this, you can go as slow as you can. So here we are in cat, or we're in cow. Retract the shoulders, pulling into the ground. Now we're going to start to tuck the hips, starting at the lower vertebrae. Now I want to go one vertebrae at a time, and you'll really notice if you're skipping. So I'm probably skipping, okay? Now let's try the other way. So we're going to push into the ground. Instead of starting at the hips, we'll start at the head. It's a little bit harder for me. So I'm going to push in, then I'm just going to start to pull. As I drop the head, or I bring the head up, retract the shoulders, mid-back, lower back, and then the pelvic tilt. Okay, let's go the other way. the best example, but you're really just trying to do the best that you can. So everyone's a little bit different. So now we're going to go with our scap cars. So I really like to start out with real basic, next to the hands, next to the thighs. And I've heard, try to keep maybe your middle finger in the same spot the whole time. Try not to bend the elbows and try not to let the arms go away from the sides. And so it starts with a protraction, elevation, retraction, and then depression. All the way down to protraction, elevation, retraction, and then depression. Let's go the other way. So it's retraction, elevation, protraction, depression. Now, a lot of times you'll see people start to bring their head forward like this. So I'm really trying to keep that, neck, I'm not going to force the retraction, but I don't want it to go into protraction. So now you can also do this with your hand out front. So you go out front and go out to the side just slightly, about 10 degrees, and then you're going to protract, elevate, retract, depression. Okay, you can also squeeze the fist here. You go reverse. Then you can switch. Really just taking a mental note. What side feels better? What side is harder to control? You can do it at the same time. Now, crappy cars are crappy cars, but they're still cars. So you still got to do them even though it might not feel right. So after a couple of years, you'll just have so much more control. But you got to do it daily. Now we're going to get into our shoulder cars. So you've seen people maybe do it in a lunge position, and we'll do that today. Sometimes I'll radiate by just squeezing this fist. So here I'm in shoulder flexion. And then I would start to go into internal rotation of the shoulder. Notice that the first thing that wants to move is first thing I want to do is pronate. Okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm internally rotating by pronating. So a lot of people will do that. So I really have to co-contract my bicep and tricep so my bicep moves forward. So I'm actually internally rotating, not just pronating. So I'm going to radiate by squeezing this fist. Core is nice and tight. Flexion. Bicep goes forward, hopefully. Internal rotation. Once you hit internal rotation, start reaching back, creating that circle with the hand. Try not to move anything else. And keep internally rotating as you create that circle. And so the back of the hand should be next to the body here. So you're still in that internal rotation. From here, we're going to go into shoulder extension. Hold here. Find your range of motion. Retract the neck if you feel like it's protracting. And then we're going to start to externally rotate using the biceps and triceps. Try not to do it with the forearm. As you reach back, forward, and down. I'll go over that a little bit faster here. Really squeezing, find that control. You can also just go forward, then do it again. You can use a dowel. So I'll show you looks like with a dowel. If this hurts your knees, you can always put your knee on a yoga block like that. So I'm going to stab this into the ground. Everything's pretty much active here. I'm not passive by any means. All right. So those were the shoulders. You can also do axial rotations, which we'll do in a couple seconds. You can also do the shoulder cars with weights. Okay. So you could have weights on your wrist. You can do this with some, maybe like a 1 pound dumbbell maybe, start. It's going to create more radiation because you have to squeeze it harder. So you're going to recruit more muscles, and thus you'll get more control. So now, let's see. Let's go ahead and get our elbows. Going to supinate our hands, sit up nice and tall or stand. Extend the elbows. And really trying to supinate here. The hands, as you supinate, you're going to bend the elbows. What they say is pretend there's a beam of light radiating from your hands. And you're kind of just, everything is nice and tight. Pronate, extend, supinate, flex, pronate, extend. Keep those elbows glued to the rib cage. And then let's pronate and bend, supinate and extend. Now, you won't feel anything if you don't really put a lot of effort, I think, in the elbows. So I think this one's an easy one for people to kind of cheat in, meaning that you're probably going to feel like you're not getting any benefit. So it's really important to really focus on those movements. Sometimes I like to do it with my arms teed out. Supination, I'll go to external rotation, flexion, pronation, and then extension of the elbow. So external rotation of the shoulder, flexion of the elbow, pronation as you push out. And then from here, squeezing the fists. I put my middle finger or my thumb in between my middle finger and ring finger. And then from here, we're going to go into external rotation of the shoulders, internal rotation. You're trying to actually use your shoulders, your biceps, and your triceps, not your forearms to make this happen. So find your full range of external rotation. Palms are facing up. But really use your biceps and your triceps here. And then go the other way. Internal rotation. And relax. From here, we just got the shoulders, and now or the elbows. Let's get the wrists. So starting wrist extension. A good extension test, wrist extension test is going like this. You should be able to have just a flat surface here. Okay. Now, if you're doing handstands, think about what you're doing. You're creating that flat surface. So if you can't do this actively, just think of what's going to happen when you put load on that. You'll probably get injured, okay? So you need that wrist extension, active wrist extension, to be able to get in your handstand. So if you're like right here and you can't get your hand all the way down, and you're right here right now, and you can't get it down, you shouldn't be doing any front squats. You should really be working on wrist mobility above anything before you do anything like that. So make sure that your prerequisites are in order first. So push-ups, handstands, something like that. If you can't extend the wrist, or if there's a lot of pain, a closing angle pain, then you need to really get that checked out actually. So for your wrists, same thing, kneeling, sitting, or standing. Elbows next to the side, extend the wrists. Then from here, ulnar deviation, flexion, ulnar radial deviation, all the way to extension. You're trying to keep the wrists or the fingers straight. Try not to curl the fingers. Really slow, really controlled, trying to find your full range. I like to think of the middle finger as creating the biggest circle here. Okay, you can also isolate it by using a block, so one hand at a time. You can do your ulnar and radial deviation. So this would be your ulnar deviation, this would be your radial deviation. You can do flexion and extension while you are pronated. You can do flexion and extension while you're supinated, and then you can also do that same wrist car in supination, just like that, okay? You can do this with your fist, just like that. This is gonna build longevity in your wrists. It's gonna get the fluid in the joints, and it's gonna increase the long-term health of this wrist. Now, if you're trying to build space in your wrist, that's when you go into what they call pals and rails. So pals and rails would help you expand the space. So example would be holding this for about 1 minute passively and breathing, inhale for 4, exhale for 8. And then beginning to push into the ground from 0 to 100%. Then once you reach 100% effort, hold it for 10 seconds. After that, you use the tissue on the opposite side of the hand in your regressive angular isometric load for about 10-second hold, and then you go back to the stretch, and then you switch side. Now, if you go and do that on the first day, you might get really sore. So that's why you need to do the wrist cars first. You need to do low intensity, high volume to start, and then do a little bit higher intensity, lower volume, adding in, more radiation like a block. And once you feel comfortable with your wrists, then you can start doing really light pals and rails, maybe not holding it for a full minute, maybe just starting at like 15 seconds, seeing if your wrist can extend like that. If you feel a lot of pain there, then you're probably not ready. So don't go full into it right away. So that's how you get your wrist going. You should probably do it with your watch off, but I don't. Sometimes I'll put my back of my hands on the ground like this, and I'll do the pals and rails the opposite way. So I'll press the back of my hands into the ground 1 to 2 minutes, and then after my pals pushing into the ground, I would start to go the other way. Okay, and you can do that in this way, like this, and just kind of playing around with the different variables that your wrist can actually get into. You can do finger cards, believe it or not. So you can really create circles with one finger at a time. Especially with people swiping all the time and using your phones, you probably definitely need to work on your thumbs and your fingers before you lose them, because it's kind of all we use nowadays. So making sure that you're getting your fingers as well. So we've gone through elbows, fingers, shoulders, scapula, T-spine, segmental cat-cow, and your neck. So let's get into our hip. So sometimes using a wall or like a rig, like a squat rack rig, is really good to use. So what you can do is get nice and tight here, kind of use it to hug, and this is gonna let you kind of see how much real internal rotation, extension, and abduction you have in that hip. Now, if you do that without holding on to anything, what you tend to see is a lot of compensations. Now, compensations aren't bad, they save you. So remember that. That's Dr. Dre right there. So when I go like this, I'm going to tend to lean forward and then go like that. So I'm going to feel like I have all this hip extension, but I'm not, right? Because I'm bringing my head forward. So if I go like this, I realize I don't have too much hip extension. So this, by holding onto this apparatus, what you're doing really is you're showing yourself how much hip mobility you actually have. So I'm going to squeeze nice and tight, irradiate, breathe. I'm not going to talk through this one. And you go the other way. Yeah, that'll get you. So I'll try the other side. Woo. You can put a lacrosse ball behind your knee. That'll make sure that you know that your knee is actually bent, because a lot of times people will start to straighten their leg out like this. So you can put that right there. I'll do this in the quadruped. Sometimes I know Dana likes to put his hand here. And I know some people like to go against the wall to create that separation there. So definitely keeping that ball there keeps things honest. I feel like I have no mobility in this hip. Woo. So now I'm going to go away from the ball. I'll probably away from the wall, and I'll probably start to compensate a lot more. Remember, you're trying to keep your back flat. All right, switch. I feel like my back's probably all over the place. So there we got our hips. One thing I want to do real quick is show a quick shoulder internal rotation, sleeper stretch. So kind of get into this, I don't know, L, J shape. So hand extends in front of the shoulder. Make sure that your shoulders retracted and back. Okay. Head is resting here. Dorsiflex the feet. And then we're going to bend the elbow. Internal rotation here of that shoulder. So hand is in front of the shoulder or outside. Bring it down about 10, 15 degrees. And then hand goes toward the belt buckle. We're going to hold right here. Hold this 1 to 2 minutes passively. And then the progressive angular isometric low would be to press the wrist into the hand and use the hand as a barrier, 0 to 100%. Once you're at 100%, hold it for 10 seconds at your safest and greatest effort. And after that progressive angular isometric load, what you do is then go into your regressive angular isometric load, trying to pull that hand away from your barrier upwards of 10 seconds. And then once you're done, you go back to your passive stretch. So I just did a quick version, show it on this side. Holding this internal rotation here, 1 to 2 minutes. Progressive angle would be this way, because look at progressive angle is the bigger angle, right? Regressive, smaller angle. Okay, that's for all the Paladin routes. So what I'm doing is I'm contracting the muscles on the outside of the tissue here. So I'm in internal rotation, but I'm trying to go to external rotation by using all the tissues on this side of my arm. And then when I do my regressive, I try to use the opposite tissue going this way. Okay, so 0 to 100% calves effort, pressing the wrist into the hand, into the wrist, 0 to 100% effort, and then regressive angle, trying to go deeper into your internal rotation. So your progressive angular isometric load is basically contracting out of that position. And then your regressive is kind of going deeper into that position actively. It's starting with your passive stretch, your diaphragmatic breathing. So you're not just going into this and just pulling on it like that. You really need to do it sequentially. So if you're trying to build capacity in that internal rotation, this would be one of those stretches. For the knee, ankle, toes, and patella. So knee, wrap your hand around. I like to do first a dorsiflex. Flex the knee as much as you can. I'm actually trying to squeeze my gastroc into my hamstring. Okay, so I'm trying to squeeze those together. And from here, internal and external tibial rotation. Grasp the hands. External tibial rotation, knee extension, internal flexion. Out, up, in, down. Using the same concepts the whole way through. So this is, using my whole body to make this happen here. Now we're going to keep it in and up, out and down. In, up, out, down. Pull into the shin, plantar flex, inversion, dorsiflex, eversion, plantar flex. Make a big circle here with our toe and our pinky. Other way. super slow, super controlled. Like tell people it's not a race. Like you don't get a prize if you go like this. You don't get any prizes for that. So the more effort you put into it, the more return you're going to get back. Really just try and explore your own space. Don't worry about anything else. Okay. Now, stay on that same side. Now, you tell people to move their patella, and they kind of just push it around like that. You actually have to have control over that as well. So a lot of people are afraid to touch it. I don't know, I guess it's kind of normal, but you just gotta just make sure that you have authority over that or control over that. Why? Because it would be nice to know if you have range of motion in your patella, because if it's not moving, then you're likely to have other issues. If you do have other issues, this would be a good assessment to see where you're at. So yeah, it might crunch a little bit. Think of it in a dial or a clock, going 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then go the other way. All right, let's get the other knee. Wrap your hand around, dorsiflex, internal tibial rotation, external. Knee extension, in and down. Out, up, in, down. Out, up, in, down. Up, in, down, and out. Or in, sorry. Let's go to the ankle. Now you want to do this barefoot as much as you can. If you go to a gym like me, they don't let you take your shoes off, so you have to work out in your shoes. You can still do all these exercises. You can even do toe stuff inside your shoes. So you can still do your ankles. You still can do a lot of different things. You just are definitely limited if you wear shoes. So try to do this barefoot. Get that patella. Patella is the only joint that we move that we try to be actually relaxed. So we're not tensing up. We're not actually using that law of radiation here. Again, just pushing that patella in a circle. And you'll know if it doesn't feel right, it's good to know that, you can control kind of, how that feels by just manipulating it as well. All right, so now let's get our toes. So we're gonna start with all 10 toes on the ground. Notice that if your toes are like all clumping together. So like my pinky toe is like pressing against this toe right here. I don't want that. That's not good. That's from the socks that I wear. That's because my feet are super wide. And so that curvature of the sock just wants to wrap around because this is super wide right here. It wants to slope. So that's not good for my pinky toe. This toe as well also goes inward like that, okay? More than my right toe. Naturally, when they just go down on the ground, I have more space here than I do here, and I have a little bit more room here than I do here. But both my pinky toes really are like glued here. So it's important, to space your toes out manually if they don't naturally, or if you can't get them to abduct. So you can abduct your toes, which means your toes go out, and you can adduct your toes, which means your toes go in, okay? So we're really trying to abduct those toes to start, trying to get those toes away from each other. You might have to manually do that. Okay? And now, press them together. Adduct. Then abduct. Okay, from here, all 10 toes are up, and we're just going to keep the big toes up. Notice that this toe goes in. I don't want that. My toe should just go straight forward, okay? And my left toe on that side doesn't go up as high as my right toe. So that's something to take note, because some people won't even be able to get their toe up even a half a centimeter. So that's okay, I think, especially my right toe. But my left toe definitely needs some work. So now opposite, big toes down, all 8 small toes up. Really pressing that big toe into the ground and really trying to pull those other toes up. And then switch. Switch again. And then from here, all 10 toes up. We're gonna go pinky to big toe. So really trying to control pinky to big toe. And then back up. Pinky to big toe. That was horrible. One more time. Pinky, big toe. All 10 toes up. Now just the big toe touches 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now you've gotten pretty much everything. Now, if you're going to get into your ankles, I would recommend pals and rails in the combat position, just like this. Okay, pushing down is your pals, and your rails will be pulling the toes up toward the shins. Okay, what I think is really cool if you're still watching is you can try to extend your toes into the ground in the kneeling position as a pal, and your rail would be to flex the toes toward your body. So you can extend or press the toenails into the ground if they're not sensitive, and then you can pull those toes toward your heels as a rail. So you'll feel lots of cramping going on, and that's going to really stimulate kind of a neurological response saying, hey, wake up here, buddy. So from here, you can extend the toes. After doing that, you can do the pals and rails in this position by pressing the toes into the ground. And then rails would be pulling those toes up or going deeper into the stretch. Okay? You can put your big toe up against a block like this. Okay? And you can do your pals and rails with your big toe. Okay, and so I've seen people do that before. For your calves, I recommend your gastroc stretch, just like this. Pals and rails, pals, press the toes and feet into the ground, gas pedal down, rails, pull the toes up toward the shin and go deeper, okay? But remember, what do you do first before pals and rails? Your calves stretch. So here's your gastroc. You want to get both sides. It just feels so good. If you want to get your soleus, as soon as you bend that knee, your gastroc is unable to plantar flex as good because it's contracted because it crosses over the knee. So now the only muscle that is really responsible here for plantar flexing is your soleus. So your soleus would be stretched in this back knee here because it's slightly bent, okay? That would be your soleus. Here's my soleus on this side, bend the knee. That knee goes forward. Pals press the toes down, rails pull the toe up. And then your last one to get the deeper posterior lower limb there. I think it's your hallucis longus, maybe. It's deep in there. And there's probably other ones in there, but basically pulling that foot all the way up the wall. Pals, plantar flexion, rails, pull the toe up. You definitely need a flat wall, flat surface. You don't want this ridge here. So you got to find a good rig. So you could actually do like this, maybe. So yeah, you could pull your feet up just like that. If you're really trying to get like your Achilles, there's deep tissue muscle in the lower limb. To regress. Okay, just like that. Okay. That's it. I'm done. See y'all. Yeah, toes are really hard to work. So work on those toes.